Do you know that the human mind that we have inside of us is a mechanism that we use on so many different levels of trying to navigate through this portal called life, and also for survival of our human physiology, biology? And do you know that without evidence of soul searching, of your deepest spirituality, if you're not focused on what you're able to become and what you're able to become abstract from, because there is a duality and non-duality within the social conditioning in the body that has all different factions, all different even assignments that the body carries out. Do you know that the soul is inside the body? The soul is unlimited, it has no bounds. The soul doesn't simply cease to exist because it's absent from the body. The body ceases eventually to exist because nothing physically lasts in this world that is tangible to the core of all what breaks apart, because molecules, they're made up from what is the essence of physical matter. And they become on different shapes, different forms, different molecular science is what we are governed by. And do you know that our level of human understanding is very limited when it comes to the spiritual things on such higher levels? See, the body has powerful antidotes of alleviating all different forms of controlling patterns, of painful desires, painful stripping away that comes apart when we are seeking, for the deepest and most honest and truthful answers that only God knows on levels that He doesn't give simply us as a human creation to know every single thing about God, unless He wants to reveal every single ounce and every layer of His entire existence. His entire being is beyond anything that is what is conditional. God is beyond what is of every layer that is put together that is superficial. And God is above what is self-serving. God isn't humanistic. When you actually think about that, there are realms that are in the spiritual realms that are like trillions and trillions of galaxies within these realms, that they all operate differently, that they all function in a different spiritual operation. I'm speaking about the unlimitedness of eternity. Spiritual realms I'm describing of heaven. I'm describing, the Bible speaks about where Jesus says, "In my Father's house there are many mansions, and if it were not so, I would have not prepared a place for you." Jesus was speaking about a kingdom not of this world. He was speaking about there are things that we have not yet even figured out or seen with our own eyes, with our own imaginations, can't even go as far as what actually is, as far as different realms of what heaven in the spiritual kingdom looks like. One has to believe and has to see themselves as going beyond them thinking that they are just mortal in this life. They have to see themselves as the process that there is immortality, that there is, from our human physical birth, there was an originality of spirit that was put into a body. There was energy of what stemmed from something that was greater, that was spiritual, from God that said, "Let there be light," and then there was light. And the darkness that is in existence is because the light had existed and the darkness need to have what was a contrast, what was also trying to find something that is the opposite lens, the opposite scope of light, to make the light have its powerful meaning, powerful rays, powerful presence that creates brightness for life and the intricacies of souls that are made in these human bodies. And because when Adam and Eve, when they disobeyed God, light was fallen and darkness became something that would prevail on this earth for millennia, for centuries, since the beginning of time. And we could speak about why we are in the state that we are in today. Why is man fallen? Why is there sickness? Why is there disease? Why is there suffering that never seems to end, is the question. The only thing I could actually give you as an answer is that one must live in a way of just acceptance of what is, and that there is no other way that you could define gravity. You can't define the physical timeline of a person that has a finite existence, because you can't make it into an infinite amount of what you want, of a lifeline, of you making your existence yourself, as far as how many years that you think that is justifiable in searching and being able to live a long length of just years that are beyond what is the normality of human years. Like, you can't add more years. You can't create more of a life force that can create a much deeper lifeline of a person's existence to live longer than what is the life expectancy. 100 years is the framework of a social timeline. And most of us live within a 100-year gap in a generation, because no one really lives beyond 100 years for the most part. So whatever exists that is right now is this generation that is of wealth on just mental and spiritual, cognitive levels to gain with the depth of God to reach for, and to really know your purpose, to really know that you have to maximize, every social awareness. You have to be able to realize everything that has its balance, everything that has a correlation. Understanding good and evil has to be now. You have to understand what is in the growing formations of social change, biological change. You have to find the pieces that are missing, and you have to learn to put the truth together. And the truth is basically in your body. Your body chemistry is the truth, because it speaks everything that is literal. Because there are those that articulate wisdom by book knowledge. They read, to feed their mind spiritually, but they don't have evidence to put what they've read into practice. Someone could read the Bible. They could know simply God from a point of himself being supernatural, him being omniscient, and him being the God of the universe, the God who is the creator of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. He is the one who sent Jesus Christ into the world to speak the gospel to us, and for us to then heed to the gospel, and to then choose to follow his commands and to obey and to serve him. But it doesn't mean that they're putting it literally into practice where they actually know the will of God is simply to know the fallen body and its breakdowns, its functions on all levels biologically, because you are spiritual, but yet you are in a human body. You are conditional on all aspects unless you put into practice of the detaching from yourself of all the desires that create chasing after, that create lusting after, that create envying after. And you could be spiritual all day long, but you're still chasing after what is of the desires that is truly of a worldly front, of a worldly human seeking of attachment. Like you're still attached to the goals of your life's purpose in this finite, successful seeking of achieving in this world without realizing that you're missing the aspects of the real things that spiritually are concrete, that spiritually that are much deeper than your own identity of just yourself as this person that you are. Because it's not about you as being just a person, it's about what created all of this and what leaves behind all of this when it's all over, when we are like a light switch that goes off, that turns off. What is going to be beyond this? What does our consciousness embody? The physical body has its own consciousness, but you know, the spiritual consciousness is you in a spiritual body that is a soul. So your physical consciousness, now speak about evolution, it's tied to that which is the origin of things that evolve and things that disevolve. So your consciousness disevolves physically in this human body. Your human consciousness and your human identity, they cease to exist. So consciousness physically in a human body will cease to exist. But a spiritual consciousness, which is in a different body, which is your own soul that is not body, will exist. See, science is tied to the things that are physical. God is tied to the things that are all spiritual. So if someone tries to disprove that the Bible is just a myth or that is just a fable and it was written by men, you're speaking about on the physical conditions of us being finite, and that you're speaking from us in a physiological, scientific sense that is proven only what exists in the physical world. But you can't speak about something that is invisible, that you haven't seen, because what you haven't seen is simply that is not about the mere evidence that you can prove that God exists or doesn't exist. It's you having a faith, an intuition. It's you being able to believe, that has to do with spiritual evidence that exists, that all ties into us as physical evidence to know that God exists through the spiritual aspect of evidence that exists only when you're able to realize that your body is a lie of all the things that it produces, all the things that your body tries to hold and tries to waste of. You know, your body that you rely on for all of the answers, that's why you lack spiritual seeking of evidence to know that it is the mere share of then knowing truly wisdom that will carry you to knowing where the real evidence spiritually that can't explain, time, that can't explain the universe, that can't explain, philosophy. The thing is, all of these different tying of different trajectories of life in the physical world, they can't explain the supernatural world that is so many spiritual worlds, so many spiritual layouts, that people are stuck in their own frame on just physical belief that this is all that matters, because this is all that appears to be what is on the surface reliable. Like people rely heavily on things that they could see, that they could feel, that they could touch, that they could taste, that they could be alive, to say that this is a witnessing of what is here, what is now. And it's just a lack of, finding their spiritual nature is the lack of them believing evidence of what is supernatural. But this is really what it comes down to, is it's evidence that is beyond natural of what is physical evidence. It's faith that is beyond even the things that we don't trust. You have to put your faith into believing something greater than what you know by just physiological reason that you can trust. It is a spiritual, powerful of unraveling the chemistry that you identify in your human body, as yourself. And when you rid yourself from the desires that you are constantly being inundated, because world inundates you with its education type of feeding, and there's different feed loops of mental sustaining, of being programmed on everything that is a human response, a human equipping, a human intellect, a human knowledge, education of life, and everything is explained by the way that one is told to function in a system of operating on all just human levels that are off of instincts of survival, instincts of all of what is humanly in us, that is made up of us. We go by the physical, logical world that we can see, that we know, and not believing what is beyond physical evidence. Spiritual evidence really is the heart of you finding God, and it's when you break your detachment from your wants and cravings, your body's cravings, your body's temple not being defiled in any which way, then you'll start to feel spiritual evidence come alive. When you seek the things that are outside of your will, but you have to find that what is God's will.